Hello, friends and family. I hope that you guys are feeling blessed today. I hope that you have seen the work of God in your life throughout this week. It's Friday, it's the weekend. Hope you have a great weekend this weekend. I want to lead you into the weekend with just a word of encouragement. I want you to think about, or not, I don't want you to think about, but I have had people that have asked me or posed the question to me, what do you think that we will look like in heaven? How is it that we will recognize one another? And they seem to believe, or there seems to be this consensus that we are these, like we're like angels, and we're so not like angels. And the reason that I know that is because Jesus sets the precedent for what it is that we're to expect. And so, whenever he was raised again, he was in his bodily form, but he was in his risen body. And so he was in his glorified body, is what I should say. That's a more accurate description. And so it says that he came to his disciples and he came through the wall and stood before Thomas. And so, because Thomas is sitting there, you've heard the term doubting Thomas. And so, Thomas was just doubting the whole thing. He was like, how could that have been God? I mean, and I understand. I kind of I kind of empathize with Thomas. Like, I think I may have been kind of like him. Jesus was the Son of God, and he did a bunch of miracles, and he did all these things right in front of my face. But then he was beaten horribly, crucified, and then I watched him die. And I watched, or I didn't watch him die because Thomas wasn't there. But I know that he died, and I know where he was buried. Like, I know where his body was. In those moments afterwards, I'm sure all the disciples were like, he's supposed to be the king. I mean, the Messiah was supposed to come back and take over. Remember, that was kind of the doctrine of the Old Testament. That was kind of the doctrine of the Pharisees and Sadducees, is that when the Messiah came back, he would be a king. He would be this great king who would squash the Romans. And so Jesus just didn't fit the description for them. But the disciples saw up close and personal that Jesus did miracles and he loved well. He never sinned. He never sinned. And he knew things that he shouldn't have known, that he couldn't have known, except that he was God. He was obviously full of the Spirit because he is part Spirit, right? One third, right? And so he's a third man, a third Spirit, and a third God, but he's 100% all as well. That's three in one, the Trinity. And so, like, whenever he was raised up, he went to visit his disciples, and it says that he came through the wall and then offered Thomas the ability to stick his fingers in the holes in his hands and the hole in his side. Because I don't think that Thomas even believed that it was him until he showed him his hands. And it also says that he was walking along the road with two people, and they were grumbling about what had happened earlier in Jerusalem. And they knew, they did not know that that was Jesus in his risen body. They just thought it was just another a guy, another Jew from Jerusalem. And so he appeared to them to be just a man. And so it wasn't until they sat down and broke bread and Jesus began to pray that they recognized him. And as soon as they recognized him, he disappeared, right? And so it's like, man, I believe that, and Jesus happened to be there's an argument for him being somewhere around 32 years old, 30 to 33 years old whenever he was crucified. And so I believe that somewhere around between 25 and 35 years old is whenever you're in the prime of life. It's when you're fully grown. That's when your body, the aging process it's in other words, your body goes from being peaked to going into a state of decay. Now, we're always in a state of decay from the day that we're born, right? But we grow and grow and grow and grow, and then we begin to deteriorate, right? And so I think that each and every person that's ever been born had a prime. And even those who, God bless them, were taken as children, or, that they will also be in heaven in their primary, the prime of their lives, what would have been their lives. And God knows, like God, the Bible says God knew us before we were ever even born. He knew us. He says we're fearfully and wonderfully made, and that he was there before the creation of the world. And so remember, God sits outside of time. So time is irrelevant in the kingdom. There is no such thing as time. Everything's in the moment. It's now. Everything is in the now in the kingdom. And so I believe that we will all be in the prom of our lives, or our spirit bodies will appear as though what we would have or did look like in the prime of our lives. And that's how we'll recognize one another. I will look like me, except for I will look like me in the prime of life, which was probably about 25 years ago. And so, and I think that all of us will share that. I think Jesus is the only one that's going to have scars. The Bible says that we'll be without scar. There'll be no more tears, no more pain, no more hurt, no more disease, no more crying, no more anxiety, no more fear, no more anything that doesn't come from God. 100% of everything that we'll experience in the kingdom of heaven and in heaven will come from the Lord. 100% of it. And that is such an awesome thing to think about. That's the reason I think that Paul had it right when he said to be absent from the body is to be present with Christ. They say fear, death is makes people afraid. And of course, do I want to die? No, I don't. I've been real close a couple of times, and I know a lot of you have too. And so, but Paul understood, and Paul was not an old man whenever he said this. He said to be absent from the body is to be present with Christ. And Jesus even told his disciples, you're going to have to put your lives on the line whenever you go out and start talking to the people who have power, that, and telling them the truth of what is. Everybody's going to be against you. In fact, you can count it good if you are persecuted on the account of my name. That glorifies me. And so, we have to recognize what it is that Christ said, the precedent that he set for what it is that we should expect on the other side. And so to be absent from the body is to be present with Christ. I want to encourage you today that this life is just temporary. However, you have a purpose, you have a mission. If you're still here, you still got a purpose. There is still a reason that you're here. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how young you are. I don't care how qualified you are. None of that stuff matters. God has a reason for you if you're still here. Okay? And so be blessed. Understand that, if you can't find a reason to be here, serve somebody, love somebody. That's a good enough reason. That is reason enough for you to be alive today, is to serve somebody. Be a good servant. Be a good lover of people. All right. I hope that you guys are blessed beyond measure. I hope that maybe for some of you out there that have never thought about this, maybe it's something good for you to roll around in your head. Obviously, there is no firm evidence that what I'm saying is going to be what it's going to be. I'm just looking at the precedent that was set for us by Jesus himself. And so I hope that this blesses you. I hope that it encourages you. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you guys again soon.